Hey everyone, this is Rodrigo Sevilla with EasyLearnTutorial.com, and welcome to the first tutorial in the series Web Programming Step by Step, where we're going to learn how to use JavaScript. The first thing I want to do is just explain what JavaScript actually is and what it's used for, and then I will kind of introduce this series and where we're going to go with it. So the first thing, obviously, JavaScript is a programming language, first and foremost. It's most commonly used in websites, and that's why this is part of the web programming course. But a few things about JavaScript that are common misconceptions. First of all, JavaScript has very little to do with Java. You've probably heard of Java. And JavaScript is not Java. You should know that, and not really associate the two just because the names might sound kind of similar. Um, Programming languages typically come, just very generally speaking, there's two types pretty much. One is it's called a dynamic programming language, and one is a static programming language. JavaScript is dynamic, and Java specifically is not. In a way, Java is really also, well, it's kind of both, and I don't want to get into too much details about that. But JavaScript is a very dynamic programming language, which means it means different things, but it doesn't get compiled like a C++ program would. And that means every computer program, when it's executed, obviously it's written by a human, and the human uses a higher level language than what the computer uses to execute it. Computers just use zeros and ones. You may have heard of binary, and it's kind of hard for a human to start writing binary straight up. So what happens is any program that you can think of is written by people, regular people, using programming languages. Normally, well, in the case of a static language, and then that language is converted. There's a program or types of programs called compilers, which translate and convert all the programs, all the source code, into binary, and then from then on, the program becomes you may have seen an executable file. That is just a plain computer language, and every time you run it, the computer executes the executable, which is already in a language appropriate for the machine, for the hardware. Now, a dynamic language, on the other hand, every time you run it, all it is text. So it's not like an executable, it's not a binary file. But also, every time you run it, you're running the actual high level, human readable, somewhat readable text file, pretty much. And then every time you execute it, there's another program. The first, it translates into machine language, and then it executes it. And in the case of JavaScript, this is done by a virtual machine. That's one of the things that sets it apart from many other languages. And also, being dynamic can mean that the language has loose types is one aspect of it, which means, and we'll get into more details about this, and in JavaScript, you can have variables that can change dynamically to represent different types. Like I was saying about a binary, when you have code in your program, the computer stores that information, again, in binary as ones and zeros. Let me just pull up my text editor and show you kind of an example. Let me just create a new file really fast. Yeah, I won't even save this. But so in binary, let's say you have something like this. If this is a number, this could mean the number 3. But just looking at that, it could it depends on the context of what we're trying to have this mean. So if you're going to use this in a computer, let's say you want to do something like multiply this thing, or not even multiply, just add this by something like this. Well, the computer needs to know a context. If you are interpreting this to be a number and this another number, because maybe you want this to be a letter and you just want to add another letter to it. So when you program, and this is something we'll learn about, you have the concept of variables, and each variable holds it references some of those binary numbers in memory, and the computer needs to know the context of that. If that string of binary data represents a number or characters or whatever it is. And in most static languages, every variable has a defined type, so the computer knows how to interpret the data that it uses. And in JavaScript, that is dynamic, meaning one time you can have a variable that holds a number, and then it can all of a sudden hold a string and other more complex objects. And we'll talk more about variables and numbers and strings and stuff like that as we go on. But I just wanted to talk about that in this first video. The other misconception about JavaScript is that it is, although it is most commonly used in websites, it is not only used in websites. Every browser, like Google Chrome or Firefox, Internet Explorer, they all have a JavaScript virtual machine built into it. So when you're running JavaScript on a website, you're really just running, what you do, you activate the browser's virtual machine, and that's what executes your JavaScript code. But there are many other places where JavaScript is used. For instance, and this is probably something you haven't realized, maybe it is, but in Windows, when you open a Windows Media Player, you can have skins, like a little theme to the player, and those themes are actually a collection of images and JavaScript files. It has nothing to do with the browser, but the Windows operating system makes great use of JavaScript and resources like that. And there's other places where you can use it. So just learning what JavaScript is and how to use it will allow you to create more dynamic and more intelligent websites, as well as other things where JavaScript may be used. So I hope you're excited about this series. I've put a lot of effort into making other tutorials and other lessons. Be sure to post any questions or any comments or even any requests in the comment section. If there's anything specific you want me to go over in more detail or to create a tutorial for, just let me know. Please like this video if this was interesting, or if you're excited about this series as much as I am. And be sure to subscribe. Thank you very much.